Hello dear student, today I'm gonna show you how to use After Effects. And let's start at the beginning. So you open up After Effects and you're really confused. Don't panic, because I'm going to explain to you what you need to know. When I make lectures, I look at them from a student's perspective. At the moment everything is empty, but we will soon fill it up, don't worry. So on the left right here is your project panel where all of your files are gonna go. You will be able to create folders and organize your stuff because it's really important when you're working with After Effects. It will speed up your production process because you will know where everything is. In the middle right here is your composition panel where your actual video preview is gonna go. On your right is a bunch of panels that are fully customizable, and you can actually drag them around like this, and you can make your own workplace, but for now we're gonna stick with standard workplace because we don't want to make things complicated. But yeah, you can drag them around and scale them up and down. At the bottom over here is your layer and timeline panels. Over here you will be able to rename or reposition your layers, and over here you will be able to trim your layers and work with keyframes. Now, you might be a little bit worried that your After Effects doesn't look the same as this one. Well, don't be. The layout stays the same pretty much all the time, so make sure you select the standard layout. If not, anything similar to what you're looking at right now will do. At the top right there you have your tools. You will need to learn the shortcuts to use them. I mean, eventually. For now you can just click on them to select, but for the future definitely need to learn shortcuts because it will speed up your production process. So we will definitely get into that later, but for now, let's start creating. So, without further ado, let's create our new composition. So you need to right click on this panel right here, choose new composition, and a window will appear. You need to select, first of course you can rename your composition to something else, but I usually just leave it as it is. Then you need to select the preset. The most common presets are 720 or 1080p with 25 frames per second, but lately, with the whole 4K video thing, I would recommend using a higher resolution, so 1080 would probably do. Next thing you would need to do is set the duration of your composition. You can always change it later, so you can always change the color of the background and click OK. Congratulations, you just created your first composition. Now let's move on. So let's create our first layer. It's going to be a solid layer, sort of like a background. So you right click on this panel right here, you choose new, solid, and a window will appear where you need to select the color of your layer. And it can be whatever you want, but for now let's select sort of a grayish, almost white color. Click OK, and everything else should be fine. Let's click OK again. There, you just created a new layer. You can always change the color of the layer by going to the menu at the top, clicking Layer, Solid Settings, and changing the color over there. You can also drag around the layer, but we don't want that. So I'm just gonna undo that action, Control Z, and let's move on. By the way, just to let you know, I'm gonna be referring to commands as Control instead of Command because I use Windows and I recommend Windows for video editing. Now there is nothing wrong with using Macs for video editing, but if you want a faster render, maybe a faster performance, you will need to build a custom video editing PC. But what we are going to be doing is basic stuff, therefore you don't need a video editing PC. Even a basic laptop should do it. Okay, so in this lecture I'm going to show you what's inside the layer. To open up a layer, you click on this arrow right here and a menu pops up. Well, when I say a menu, a bunch of confusing things pops up if you're a beginner. And yeah, this thing, you won't need that as you're a beginner. You'll need the transform function. So you open up transform and you have all of those stopwatches. Now those are the stopwatches to create keyframes, a starting point or the end point of your animation. You can drag the keyframes around, you can change the values, and when you change the value, an automatic keyframe is created. So you don't actually have to click on the stopwatch every time you need to make a keyframe. You just need to select the timing where you want the animation to begin or end or change in a way that you want, and change the value. This right here is to zoom into your timeline, so it's easier to see the keyframes if they are too close to each other. This marker indicates where your current position is, and wherever you place it and change the value, that's where the keyframe is gonna be created. Or you can also drag around keyframes to wherever you need them to be, just like that. So if I want this animation to go faster, I would just select the keyframe and drag it to wherever I want it to be. As you can see, that is just one option. It's the scale option. So we're scaling the text as if it's appearing from nowhere. There's other options like rotate, for example, reduce opacity, fade it in, fade it out, and you can also reposition the text so it comes in from the side or from the top, whatever you need to do. But yeah, we're just gonna do. Actually, let's do two sets of animation. So the scale and the rotation. Now you see the anchor point is positioned in the middle, and that's why the animation is symmetrical. Anchor point is basically a pin, and if you move that pin to the side, for example, the animation will come out completely different. Try an experiment with moving the anchor point and playing around with keyframes. In this lecture, we're going to talk about shortcuts. Now at the top, you have different tools. You can of course select them manually, but it is much easier and quicker to use keyboard shortcuts. So when you hover over all those icons, you will see the key that you need to press to activate that function. So if I, for example, want to select a hand tool, I can do it manually by clicking on it and just dragging around, or what I can do is I can press H and it'll activate it. Believe me, it is much quicker and easier to work like that. When you know the shortcuts, the most important shortcuts, it'll save you so much time. So for example, if I want to select a shape tool, and as you can see they're all labeled Q. Now what you do here is you just click Q a couple of times and it will circle from the top shape to the bottom one. To preview your work, you need to either press 0 on your number pad or press space one time. Now if you press space and hold it, it will turn into a hand tool and you can drag around while you're holding it. When you release it, it will come back to the previous thing you had selected. Now, there are many shortcuts that are available, and you probably won't learn all of them. As I said, there are quite a few, but you can always learn the ones you use on a daily basis. That's what I did anyway, and I don't really need all of them to make my workflow faster. Like, for example, if I want to select an area to render, like, I can do it manually like that, or I can press B and N. So B to crop it from the left side, and N to crop it from the right side. So the area you select will be the area you can preview or area you will render, basically. You can also trim your layers. You can do that by pressing and holding Alt and then pressing either opened or closed square bracket. Or you can do it with your mouse like this. You can also use it for things like scale. So just press S on your keyboard and a scale menu will pop up underneath your layer, so you don't need to open up the layer all the time. You need to change the scale. Now, Adobe has a list on their website with all the keyboard shortcuts for Adobe After Effects. So what you can do is you can press Ctrl F and search for the command you want on that page, and just learn it and use it on a daily basis. You might be asking yourself, are there any guidelines in After Effects? And the answer is yes, there are. What you need to do is click this icon right here and select Title Action Save. When you click it, it should bring on these guidelines. You might be asking, why do I need them? Well, they are very important if you want to position your object right bang in the middle, or position two objects near each other so they are on the same level. Also, when you are working with lower thirds, I would say this is quite important and a very useful thing to know. Next, what we're going to do is select a type tool right here, click on our composition, and type in anything you want. I'm just going to type in After Effects. To deselect it, you need to select anything else but a type tool. So I just select the arrow. And okay, so the text is white, so it's not very visible. Let's change the color of it. You can change the color in this section right here. Just double click on that and select your preferred color. We're just gonna go with black. Yeah, you can go, white or whatever. And yeah, let's click OK. Oh yeah, by the way, you can also enter your hex code, preferred hex code, but we're just gonna leave it black for now. Okay, so you have your second layer, which is a text layer, and if I zoom in, you'll see this little thing. Now that thing is responsible for how your animation is gonna look. So it's called an anchor point, and you can find it if you open up your layer right here. Yep, so click that and open up transform, and there it is, anchor point. So you can change the position of the anchor point by dragging the number left and right. Okay, so we position the anchor point in the middle. Let's just let's do it properly. So you can zoom in. The way I do it is just go to the side, align it to the side so it's straight in the middle, right, like that, and then just slide back and align it to the top and bottom Right, so it looks like it's pretty much in the center. That's good. So we're happy. Let's say we're happy with that. The next thing is positioning the text. So if we want to put it straight in the middle, then that's where the action save comes in. So you turn it on and you align it right in the middle, just like that. In the next lecture, I'm gonna show you what was the point of putting the anchor point in the middle. In this lecture, I'm gonna explain keyframes in more detail. Okay, so by pressing on the stopwatch, you will create a keyframe that can be an end or a start to your animation. Let's use this one as the end of the animation. So we will place it here, then drag the marker all the way here to the start and change the value of the position by dragging the numbers. So you press and drag, and as you can see, we're dragging the second number, which is an up and down animation. So we want the text to come in from the top. We can change the length of the animation by dragging the keyframes around, and we can to go back to the start to replay the animation, we just drag around this marker. Alright, now let's use the scale animation. Press the stopwatch to create a keyframe, drag the marker where you want the animation to end. So let's say we want it to end here. Okay, now we just change the value. That's where the title action save comes in. So we want it to end on the first lines. Okay, so we'll scale it up to this much. You can also select multiple keyframes and drag them around as well. Let's zoom in. Okay, let's leave a small gap in between the animations, just so it doesn't go straight into scaling. Okay, let's remove the title action save. Let's see. Yep, that's about right. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to make the animation smooth. So we select all the keyframes, press the graph editor, and select the lines, and then press Easy Ease, this button right here. It makes the animation much smoother. You can even play around with the curves to make the animation more custom. Let's say we're happy with that. Let's see what we have. You don't have to play around with curves, obviously. You can just press Easy Ease and that'll do, but by playing around with curves, you can achieve some kind of interesting effect, like this bounce effect we have right now. This is one of the most important things that you will need to know, because your animations will run much smoother. They will look more professional if you use that effect. For this lecture, let's create a new composition. Let's leave it at 1080p, and let's select a background color. That way you won't have to create a layer to serve as a background. Right, so I'm gonna show you how to use a pen tool. A pen tool is something that you might have used before if you have Photoshop or Illustrator. Select a pen tool right here at the top, and just start creating. So if you want to make the screen bigger, you can drag around your timeline and zoom in to your canvas. Okay, let's start drawing. I'll have to be honest, It's not something that is easy to get if you're a beginner, because it took me a good few hours, maybe a day, you know, to get how the pencil works. And I was learning how to use a pencil in Illustrator. It's pretty much the same thing, but it did take me a while to understand how it works when I first started using pencil in Illustrator. I watched tutorials, I didn't understand it until I actually got it myself. So what I did is just I sat down and experimented until I got the gist of it. And I think it's better that way because you get used to using it, you feel more comfortable, and the workflow goes way faster. So let's say you created something, a shape, a character, doesn't matter. What do you do next? The first thing you can do is you can animate the position, the size of it. That's probably the most basic thing you can do. So we did that before with the text. You can do the same thing with shapes. Okay, so it moves, but it's not very impressive because it's not even walking, it's just sliding in. We can do better than that. Oh, by the way, also, if you want to create more than just a shape, if you want to actually create eyes and maybe a pattern inside the character or shape you're creating, as you can see, no new layers are created. That's because you created a path inside that layer, and you can change the color of that path so it's different. So what I'm doing here is I'm drawing eyes just so it looks more alive. Okay, so I created the eyes. As I said before, you can always go back and fix something if you're not happy. Like for example, the mouth here, I wasn't happy, so I made it more clearer, let's make the neck fatter. Okay, deselect it, looks good for an example. But what if you want to change the color of your shape? So what you will need to do is you need to open up your layer. So click it here, click on contents, then select one of the shapes that is responsible for the body. Click here to change the color. Let's select the color, let's say green, because dinosaurs are green usually. Okay, so we successfully changed the color and the eyes stayed the same, but you can change those as well by selecting the shape. So that is how you create a character. You don't need Illustrator or Photoshop to create your own character. You can do it in After Effects, and it will actually be easier to animate it. In this lecture, I will show you two ways how you can animate your characters. The first is animating the path. So you open up your layer, then you open up the shape you want to animate, then you open up path and click on the stopwatch to create a keyframe. After you create a start keyframe, you select where you want to end the animation, and then you just drag around the path the way you want it to animate. We want to do a simple animation, a simple movement of the tail. To make our lives easier, what we do is we just copy and paste the keyframes. So the last two, that is a much easier way to animate. You won't have to do it one by one. It's just bulk animating. That is one of the ways you can animate a character. Now, let me show you the second way you can do it with the Puppet Pin tool. It's located at the top, right here. So you select the first one. There's a few more, but you only need the main one. You create pins around the body of your character in various places, make sure to increase expansion and triangles at the top right here, because your character can be cut off a little bit, but something like this should do. Now, when you create a pin, it automatically creates a keyframe. So wherever you created it, that's where it's gonna start. But you can always delete it and, move around the keyframe like we talked before. Me, for example, I'm not even gonna be bothered by that keyframe in the middle. I'm just gonna roll back to the start and start animating. You can also import pre-made characters that you made in, let's say, Photoshop or Illustrator. Now we can create a pinpoint here and there, so we can actually animate the mouth, but we don't want to do that as of now. Let's do something simple. Let's animate the tail. Okay, the face looks weird, so let's delete this pin. Oh, now it looks fine. See, you just need to experiment and see what works for you. Okay, the animation is a little bit fast. What we can do is we can click here and then click mesh 1. There's all these pinpoints. When you select them here, you can actually see them highlighting on your object. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna spread them out, so the animation is a little bit longer and it's not that fast. Yep, just spread them out like that. The animation will be much longer and it won't go as fast, just like this. See? Now I think that's what we want. Yep. You can always fix it by creating additional keyframes. Congratulations, you just learned 2 ways how to animate something. We are slowly coming to an end. In this lecture, we're gonna sum up all the things we've learned and also incorporate some new things that might be useful. So let's create a new composition. Let's turn on the action title save. And let's select ellipse tool. Now you need to press shift and drag. That way you will create a perfect circle. Okay, let's deselect it, place it in the center. The anchor point is already in the center, so we don't need to move it anywhere. Let's change the color to something else and press OK. We can create a stroke as well. Let's select a darker color so it stands out more, and we can increase the size of the stroke. There you go, just like that. You can of course create your own shapes, but for now we're gonna stick with the round shape. So let's animate it. You open up transform. Let's zoom in to the timeline a little bit, and let's scale it up and down. We did this before, so you should be comfortable with doing that. Let's make it ease in and out, and drag around the curves to make it smoother. That should do. Let's go back. Okay, that is much better. So it's the flow is much nicer. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna add some text inside the shape. It can be anything. You can, for this, we're just gonna type in logo. Let's change the font. It's right here. You can scroll up and down to select the font you want to use. Let's use this one. You can scale the text up and down. Let's make it smaller. Place it in the middle. Okay, so now we can animate the text. Open up transform. Then place your object in the middle of your action title safe. Right there in the middle. And animate the scale. We did this before, so you should be comfortable with working with keyframes. If you're not there yet, just continue practicing, continue creating keyframes, dragging everything around, and soon you'll be a fish in the water, you know. It's very easy once you get the gist of it. Okay, so I think that should do it. Let's change the color of the text. And you can also turn on motion blur. It's quite a cool effect. You won't use it all the time, but there are some cases where it looks pretty sweet. So it's right here. You press this icon, and then you need to turn it on each layer you want the effect to work on. As you can see, there is a slight motion blur. When you play it back, it will look much nicer. You don't have to use it all the time, but sometimes that effect can make the scene much more alive. So next up is what we can do. We can add some effects on it. Just like in Photoshop or Illustrator. For effects, you can search either the top over here. There's all your effects and transitions, or you can go here and type in the desired effect. For example, we want to use drop shadow. It's probably the most common effect used in Photoshop. You just drag it on the layer like that, and then it'll appear on your effects panel on the left. You can change the values there, right here. Yep, so you can increase the shadow or make it smaller. And there's a lot of effects there. You just need to select each one and see what it does. See what works for you. What can you mix together and create awesome new effects. A good thing to do is create a shape and just drag the effects onto it and see what it does to the shape. So you can do that. But for now, let's continue creating our logo animation. So you can copy and paste keyframes as I said before. So first we want the circle to scale up to 100% and then scale down. You can make it disappear by creating other animations, such as reduce the opacity so it dissolves, but let's use the scale for now. We can also make it disappear by taking it off the screen. So all you need to do is animate the position, and right now we're just animating the shape's position. I'll show you why. Because you can actually parent your other layer that is not animated to the one that is, and what it will do, it will just follow the layer that is already moving. So you parented the first one, your text, to your shape layer, And now, since the shape layer is animated, the text layer will follow. As you can see, it makes your life way easier. You can do this to multiple layers, so you can create a dozen of text layers or shape layers and parent them to one layer that is animated, and they will follow that layer. Let's ease in and out. What I want to show you as well is how can you import your own graphics that you created in Photoshop or Illustrator. So you click here, click Import, File, and then select the file that you want to import. And there you go, it appears in your project panel. You can select and drag it to your composition and do the same thing you do with text layers or shape layers. You can of course apply effects to that layer. You can animate the scale, opacity, everything. There are a couple of more tips that I want to give you. So the first one is compression. You'll need to compress the video once you render it, and usually it can be done with Adobe Media Encoder, but I use Handbrake. It's just more easier for me, and it's free. You can download it from the official website, handbrake.fr. It's really easy. All you need to do is drag your video into the program, adjust your output settings, and click Convert. It's a really nice software because it compresses the file so it's so tiny it pretty much weighs a few megabytes. Okay, next thing is color. Now, color is really important when you're working with motion graphics, video in general. If you're doing a freelance project or working for a company, you're probably going to be given the colors, the brand colors. But if you're creating something for yourself or creating a video from scratch, that is creating a script, all the colors, you're responsible for it, then you'll probably need a little help. And there's some pre-made color palettes out there. Just type in Cooler with a K. It's a pretty useful website to have in your bookmarks. The next one is Font Squirrel. This is a website full of free fonts. They're free for commercial use. Some of them have exclusions, but most of the time, I would say 99%, you can use it in your projects, even for clients, for your personal projects, wherever. It's a pretty easy to use website. You can either download the font from Font Squirrel, or it will redirect you to the official website. So just do a quick browse, download some cool fonts, and use them in your awesome projects. The next stop would be aescripts.com. Now, this is a really useful website. You can download paid scripts and plugins as well as free ones. The way it works is people from around the world create amazing scripts and plugins for you to use. They sell them on this website. The price varies, so you have different price for different types of plugins. This, for example, is Reposition Anchor Point plugin, which saves time when you need to move the anchor point to the middle, to the side, or to the top. This plugin is Name Your Own Price plugin, so you can put in whatever number you want. It can even be 0, and you can download it for free or donate 10, 20, or $30. Next plugin is Ease and Whiz. Now, it's used to simulate the effect we talked about before, which is ease out and ease in. It definitely saves a lot of time, so make sure to download it and try it out. If you don't like it, you can stick to manual ease in and ease out. The next one is Duik. Duik is a free plugin for rigging animation. Now, we didn't talk about rigging in this course, but this is something you'll need for the future. So you need to look into this once you're comfortable with all the stuff we talked about. Once you can freely create your own characters or shapes in After Effects, you definitely need to download it. The next one is Theme Forest. Theme Forest is probably one of the best places to get your stock footage, stock images, or music for your videos. So in the audio section, you can actually find some free music. Once a month, they put out a free track, which actually costs about $19, and you can download it for free if you register. Next up is inspiration. Where do you find some inspiration? The answer is Behance. Now, there's a lot of different websites that you can browse. Even Vimeo. Vimeo has staff pick on their website, and staff pick section is pretty cool. But this right here, just select motion graphics on Behance, and you get a ton of amazing projects that you can be inspired by. Finally, we are at the end of the course. First of all, I want to say thank you for taking your time to look at this course, and I really hope that you learned something useful that you can use in your future projects. Even though the course is only 40 minutes long, by watching all of it, you should be able to create your first videos. And my last piece of advice, don't forget to save constantly. So you need to press Ctrl S every 5 minutes, because you don't want your project to crash and then you won't be able to recover it and all the progress will be lost. So Ctrl or Command S. I wish you all the best in your future projects. Thank you and goodbye.